You know that one song you can't get enough of? Chances are it was made with a sample from Splice. Explore top packs made by your favorite producers, sketch out song ideas in seconds with Create Mode, and dive into a sample catalog that's so deep, it's dangerous. Find out why Splice is the industry's not-so-secret secret. Visit splice.com and try for free today. Welcome to the Fader Interview. I'm Alex Robert Ross, editorial director of The Fader. Benjamin John Power, better known as Blanck Mass, has always told stories with his music, though those narratives have never been fixed across his career. After his pioneering noise duo Fuck Buttons went on hiatus, Power emerged as a techno producer with a dark ambient heart, going on to pull from every genre, from death metal to 70s krautrock, pop, and sound collage. Across 6 albums, Blanck Mass's mutable sound has been unified by its ability to travel from your ears to behind your retinas, sparking up vivid imagery. It's little surprise then that Power has journeyed into the world of film scores. Ted K, the second film that Power has scored as Blanck Mass, is the new biopic on Ted Kaczynski, commonly known as the Unabomber. Director Tony Stone's film takes a near first-person perspective on Kaczynski's evolution, from hermit to terrorist, and its sound design takes an unsettling and thoroughly convincing dive into Kaczynski's fast deteriorating state of mind. It's something of a gift for an artist like Power, who's given the chance to flex his experimental muscles and makes the most of it. A week before the film's soundtrack was released, The Fader's Jordan Darville spoke with Power about how pandemic isolation informed his score, the necessary sensitivity for making a film about a real-life monster, and his favorite film composers.
Blanck Mass, thank you for joining us today on the Fader Interview. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Yes, all good. It's a little grey where I am here in Edinburgh today, but that's the way it goes.
So you've been keeping up quite a prolific streak over the past few years. Has that taken your mind away from the usually grey Edinburgh seasons?
Well, yes. I mean, I've become something of a hermit over the past couple of years. Historically, I'm used to touring most of the year and then, writing a new Blanck Mass proper studio album within the time that I have in between. And, that's all kind of gone out the window for the time being. So I actually kind of feel lucky that this new world has opened up to me and I'm in a position to be able to take advantage of that. So yes, absolutely.
When you have a new Blanck Mass studio album in mind, if you're not able to tour it, do you immediately put it to the side and try and focus on different projects like these film soundtracks?
I tend to juggle quite a lot anyway. I tend to be working on, maybe 3 or so projects at any given point in one way or another. So everything has to kind of not take a back seat, but just take a sidestep from time to time. Everything does to a certain degree. Whereas, over the past couple of years, there has been a Blanck Mass proper, studio album, but the scoring work has taken precedent, I would say. So, yeah, some things do need to take a little sidestep, but it's not to say that I've disregarded that rung, if you know what I mean. It's just something that hasn't been as simple to be able to do for obvious global reasons. And I'm ready for it, but I'm also enjoying what's happening. For me, personally, I'm certainly not enjoying everything else that's going on. Please don't get me wrong there. Yes. On a personal level, I would say. Work-wise, bloody hell.
So tell me about how you came into Ted K and that production.
I actually received an email from Melissa Aufdermauer, who is the director's partner and also the producer on Ted K. And I had played her festival, Basilica, just outside of New York. I played it once, and we met, and being part of that kind of group and collective, we had a relationship anyway. And this happened right at the beginning of lockdown. I received this email from Melissa, asking if scoring was something that I would be interested in, and it just so happened that I had already started to work within that world. So yeah, so it was natural, and it came straight to me, direct from source, and yeah.
Now, was your work on Ted K, this is a biopic on a real person, and your first full-length score for Calm with Horses, of course, is a fictional tale. Now, did that difference make any changes to how you approach scoring Ted K?
I mean, obviously there are concerns with the subject matter. I mean, this is a murderer who is still alive, and these things happen. So, of course, the subject matter is sensitive. But I would say that the parallels between Ted K and Calm with Horses are the fact that, first and foremost, you're trying to get inside somebody's head and try and convey, for better or for worse, what they might be feeling during these things that happen. Being able to inhabit that space is something that I find interesting and amazing. The opportunity to be able to try and do that and say what you think somebody might be feeling sonically. And it's difficult, and who's to say that I got it right? I may not have, but I feel that the outcome is certainly something.
Yeah, I feel like in this film, the director really allowed your score to inhabit the scenes in a way that's quite unusual. The overall sound design for Ted K is quite special, I think. From your score to the more quieter moments when he's just by himself, there's a real effort to sonically create this internal tumult that he's feeling. That's really special, and that really works very well. And I think your background as a noise musician really helps push that feeling further.
Great. Yeah, I couldn't really ask for more in that sense. I feel like I was given a certain level of free rein to just kind of have at it. When we were discussing cues and such, adjectives were thrown around, but I think Tony did allow me to tackle these scenes instinctively, which is great, because that obviously opens the gauntlet, so to speak. You can afford to be more broad, if you're not being dictated to exactly, this is exactly what we need here. So there was a lot of experimentation that went into that. Some cues had so many different versions. Trying to find that place in a kind of explorative way was interesting. Obviously, you kind of end up stumbling upon things that you might not have necessarily envisioned in the first place. That's kind of how I've worked historically, really. Never... Obviously, with the moving images and accompaniment here, there's a canvas that already exists, but sonically, the canvas was open. It was blank. Whereas, historically, that's the same way that I work, but a sense of narrative has always been very, very prominent in everything that I've ever done. Just there isn't necessarily a moving picture to accompany. This is just like the score that I have to a film that doesn't exist that I have going on in my head. Having that collaborative aspect again with people like Nick Rowland and people like Tony, is it's great. And I've missed that.
I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I've found that your soundtracks, this one and for Calm of Horses, there are tracks that feel a bit more playful or show a more playful side of Blanck Mass than you might see in other full-length Blanck Mass projects. That might sound kind of weird given Inferno and how different that was to your entire catalog. But, there are tracks like Desecration and Blue Tunnel as well, which kind of gave me like Enya vibes.
Glad you said that, yeah. Huge Enya fan.
It must feel somewhat liberating to sort of like bring all of these into something that has to be cohesive, but in a different way, perhaps, than other Blanck Mass albums.
I always appreciate it when you can listen to an artist and not getting ideas above my station here. It's something that I aspire towards. I'm not too sure if I've actually realised it yet, but if you can still tell it's the same artist within a very, very broad palette stylistically, I feel like that's the first part of the job done as being an artist, So I feel like, yes, and liberating, absolutely, I feel like it's great to be able to, on TED, Nathan Corbin, director of photography. I mean, I've been familiar with his work for years and years now, back to the day when he was in Acceptor, and he's made countless music videos for my friends Hate Rock in Australia. And he has such an eye. Every single shot in the film could be a painting. I mean, there's such a wealth of content there for someone like me to, and every single image is so loaded. It's and so considered. So I think he's a genius, and it's so great to be somebody in my position with this already presented to you, because I was presented with most of the film finished nearly final picture lock. Just having that, I mean, it's like a playground. Do you know what I mean? You feel like a kid in a playground. It's amazing, whereas some projects that I've worked on, you start scoring before you've seen any picture yet. You start to sketch early on to try and shape the identity of what the aesthetic of the overall aesthetic of the film might be. And I feel like in this instance, I just had it all delivered to my doorstep.
There are certain moments, like the few tracks from the soundtrack that I just mentioned, where it does seem like you're pushing the movie and pushing yourself to convey something other than what perhaps the picture itself is intending. I think specifically of the scene in the computer store. I'm not sure if that was a discussion between you and the director, but you can't hear the dialogue for the most part. The sound is overwhelming. Your score is just at the very top of the mix. That to me is just like an instance where your own music sort of pushes the movie in a different direction than it might otherwise could have gone.
That's interesting. I would say that, first and foremost, the main kind of objective for me was to kind of, inhabit how Ted Kaczynski might have felt in these situations, as I mentioned before. So the computer store is very overwhelming, very digital, very abrasive, very in your face, very intrusive. And I felt that is potentially how you might have experienced that space. Same goes for the main theme. I mean, in Ted's head, he was a superhero and he was here to save humanity from modern technology. The opening titles there with the snowmobiles, it just screamed Sergio Leone to me, and like the old spaghetti westerns. And I feel like this is like the main theme is arguably from Ted Kaczynski's perspective. He is going to battle for the sake of humanity against the evil in technology.
Something that I feel that the movie and by extension your score does very well in the first half is that it really establishes Ted Kaczynski's antisocial, villainous impulses outside of mailing bombs to people. He's a virulent anti-feminist.
the way he talks to his mother.
Yeah, it's sort of like the prototype for, the alt-right 4chan dweller, which is quite interesting to see, and also just like very much crucial in establishing the tone of the film, which is quite unsympathetic to what Ted Kaczynski is doing, even if you might agree that, yes, cutting trees down is bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a consideration, stepping into that. I felt like that, he's toxic, as a person and, to say the least. So I feel that was an interesting and, again, very, very sensitive, when stepping into that, obviously, being part of a project like this, you don't want to come across as an advocate in a sense, but also, you want to just convey how somebody might be feeling, in this situation. I know I keep on repeating myself here, but that's, I think that's the best I can really do on that front,
Now, I feel like if someone had asked me in 2018 or what kind of film a Blanck Mass project would soundtrack, I would have said, science fiction, action, thriller sort of thing. Were you surprised, that your first movie was an Irish gangster pick followed by, this very intense biopic of an American terrorist?
It's interesting. Historically, I always thought I'm going to do a horror movie first. That's going to be the first thing I do. And seemingly, all of my projects have been character studies up until this point, which I do find interesting. I feel like I'm very well equipped, shall we say, to score an action movie or a sci-fi movie. And I feel, I feel that time will come, but I also feel that I'm finding the complex character study quite an interesting space for me at the moment. I'm learning a lot about my process here with the subject matter that I've been presented with on the last couple of things that I've scored, and moving forward too. Interestingly enough, actually, a couple of projects I can't really mention right now, but you will learn about them soon enough. Again, in a similar world, I don't know what it is that allows me to be able to access these spaces, but it's a learning curve, that's for sure.
Do you find that working on Blanck Mass music for film soundtracks has given you a new approach or a new perspective on Blanck Mass music, or even music outside of Blanck Mass that you're doing that isn't for film soundtracks?
As I mentioned before, narrative has always played a really, really strong part with anything I've done historically. Back to early fuck buttons. I feel like, I know we live in a world now where if somebody's listening to an album, it might not be listened to in order, just because I feel like vinyl has obviously seen a resurgence, but within the past kind of 10 years or so, there's been a slow diversion away from people listening to an album as it was intended by the artist. I've never really bought into that as much. I like to listen to something from start to finish, and there needs to be journeys and chapters within that. And that's something that's always been very, it's always been a consideration for me with any project. So in that sense, I don't feel like it is different to a degree, but I feel I'm always trying out new things, and whether that be something that I've tried out while scoring, or whether it's something I've tried out whilst just making techno here in the studio, I don't feel too closed in. And there have been a couple of times when scoring something that I have probably been guilty of thinking, well, now we're a composer, now we're not an electronic musician. We need to maybe consider not hammering everything home too hard, not throwing all types of shit at the wall and hoping something sticks. But I've learned that when I have done that, the directors usually come back to me and say, well no, we asked you to score this because you're Blanck Mass, so, fucking do your thing, basically, which is great,
So in terms of this new kind of collaboration that you have with directors, how is that compared to when you were in a band and collaborating with another musician?
Well, the difference is the physicality of it, I guess, especially with what's been going on over the past couple of years. Historically, when I would write with Andy and Fuck Buttons, we would be in the same room. You almost get a sense of what the other person is thinking when you understand the nuances of how they react to certain situations and certain things that you're trying out, and there's almost like an unwritten understanding, like a psychic link to some degree. I could tell if something wasn't working for him and vice versa, because you feed off the energy in the room. The difference is here that over the last couple of years, the scores I've been working on, any review of cues has been over the phone or over a Zoom. Also, to add another barrier, with Tony was in British Columbia when I was scoring Ted K, and there was a big time difference, and I would find myself working through the night sometimes because I knew that was when Tony is up and he was going to be able to react to cues and give feedback and review and such. So I feel like that maybe had some kind of impact on where my head was at while scoring this. And I feel, obviously isolation is a huge key concept in the score. And I feel like, that probably fed into it as well, very physically. So in a way, I guess the situation was serendipitous to a degree with regards to the palette and the mindset and the process,
So I've noticed in both of the films that you've scored, there are these beautiful shots of nature that appear pretty consistently. Obviously, you don't have any say in the visual aspects of these movies, but I was wondering if perhaps in some sort of roundabout way, nature was an inspiration to the music that you compose as Blanck Mass.
Nature has been a huge inspiration to me for some time now. Part of me moving out to the country, I feel like, just for me personally, I understand, growing up in London and such, when I first started out on my musical path, if you like, there's a great sense of community, and I'd be at a show every single day, and all of my friends played in bands or were musicians to some degree. That's just how I operated when I lived there, and now I live out here in the country. I feel like once you kind of get away from, for me personally, and this is not to say this is the right approach, I just feel like it has worked for me. When you take yourself away from the noise, and the sonic busyness that you have in the city, it is inspiring to me, because I feel like it's me making the noise here,
I was wondering if you have any specific memories of a single film soundtrack or piece of music from a film that made you realize that these are their own self-contained artistic entities. For me, it was the Clockwork Orange theme by Wendy Carlos.
Absolute classic. So for me, I feel like one of the first pieces of music that I can remember as a child is the main theme from The Good, the Bad and the Ugly by Ennio Morricone. I have memories of hearing that before even knowing that it was this artistic form, before I even knew it was a musical accompaniment to a movie. I didn't know this. I just remember hearing the sonics of it from when I was very, very young. And, it stayed with me ever since. I'm a huge Morricone fan. For me, that's the one, when I learned that this is an art form in itself, that happened outside of the moving picture that you have in its first instance, I feel like I always wanted to do this since I was a child for that very reason. So to be able to do this now it's kind of a dream come true. I'm not going to lie.
And it's sort of a golden age, isn't it, for electronic musicians to create these soundtracks? I mean, Mika Levi, they're doing amazing work.
So great.
The Hacks and Cloak.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just sort of like a wealth of riches.
I think it's interesting. It's not for want of trying. I've wanted to be doing this for a good time, and obviously I've had a career in music for coming close to 20 years now. I have a sneaking suspicion it's because a lot of the producers and directors that are coming out now and, putting out interesting stuff now, they're the people that listened to Fuck Buttons and the Hacks and Cloak and One a Tricks Point Never when they were kids. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like now is the time that it's kind of happening for all of us lot. And that's the only real reason that I can think of. I think it's super exciting.
Do you have any soundtracks by some of your contemporaries that immediately come to mind that you're like, yes, that was really something special?
I just received one actually in the post yesterday. This film that Boy Harsher have done, which I've not seen yet, The Runner.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, did you see this?
I've listened to the soundtrack, but I haven't seen the film.
Yeah, I'm the same here. I mean, I have to say, Johnny Greenwood's score for Spencer was maybe one of the best that I've heard in some time. That's next level as far as I'm concerned. It's incredible. And most stuff that Jeff Barrow does is usually great. You know, Gazelle Twin. I have a Clint Mansell. All of these people are friends. And we'll speak. And I find it just great to see people in a position where they can do this. And take it seriously.
I was wondering, and I'm not sure if you'd be privy to this information at all, but do you know if the real Ted Kaczynski has seen this movie?
I have absolutely no idea. More of a concern to me, though, is the people whose members of their family were killed. That's more of a concern to me, as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, I'm not sure he'd watch it. And I'm also not sure that he would approve of the fact that an electronic musician was asked to score what they perceive as his inner sonic viewpoint. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure he'd look too fondly on that.
What do you think is more his speed?
Well, as it addresses in the film, I feel like he would listen to a lot of like Vivaldi and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't really approve of synthesized strings and such.
Were you tempted at all to read any of Ted K's manifesto before you started work on this music, or was that completely separate in your mind from what you were doing?
I've not read it, but I'm aware of the of the nature of it. Of course, I mean it'd be very hard not to be. But I did make a conscious effort not to read it, and I also made a conscious effort not to watch anything else about the Unabomber. Because there have been a couple over the past couple of years. And I wanted to take this art form, this piece of work, for what it's worth when considering the score, and not come into it loaded with any preconceptions or any ideas of what I should be doing here. And I think if you approach something in that way, I feel like the results can very often be more honest than if you came to the table loaded already. Yeah.
So outside of the projects that you can't really speak about, what do you have in the pipeline?
Well, I mean, it's those at the moment, but there are, of course, there's a couple that I've been working on, which started very soon after Ted K was finished, pretty much, to the day. So I feel like it has been my focus, and, really getting inside this way of working has, it's taught me a lot, and I feel like that is what's been going on. I'm always writing new Blanck Mass studio album stuff too. That's something that is going on as well at the same time. I have no idea, and I can't put a date to when that's going to be finished, but also I'm in no rush to throw something out, for the sake of it. I feel that there is time, and that will materialize when it's ready.
And we look forward to it. Blanck Mass, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
That was Blanck Mass talking to the Fader's Jordan Darville. Blanck Mass's score for Ted K is out now via Sacred Bones. The Fader interview is engineered by Tony Giambroni. The executive producer is Alex Robert Ross, and the associate producer is Raphael Helfand. We'd like to thank Loughton Audio for providing our microphones. You can find them online at lautenaudio.com. And we'd like to thank James Ivey for providing our intro music. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate if you left a 5-star rating and review. If you like listening to The Fader, good news. We're now on the live radio app AMP. You can download it from the App Store and check out our shows with the access code FADER on AMP, all one word, all caps. And keep an eye on thefader.com for essential music news, interviews, and essays. We'll be back soon with another episode of The Fader Interview. Goodbye until then. You know that one song you can't get enough of? Chances are it was made with a sample from Splice. Explore top packs made by your favorite producers, sketch out song ideas in seconds with Create Mode, and dive into a sample catalog that's so deep, it's dangerous. Find out why Splice is the industry's not-so-secret secret. Visit splice.com and try for free today.